We'd like to start with a song, and that means everyone stand and make a circle of hands, right? Hold hands. If we can. And James will lead us in a Mother Earth song.
May I interject? I see some of our learning students. Join the circle. You're part of this community.
Can we make one big large circle? Excuse me, I'm sorry. We'll make one big large circle and then we can distribute ourselves as we want afterward.
Yes.
I really appreciate
We still have more people that are coming in, but
Yeah.
just make way for them when they come.
We have that person in there.
Here we go.
I felt that.
Feel the power around the circle. Join us. Sorry. Join the circle when you come in. Be attentive to people coming in and invite them in, please.
Literally, Steve, just grab hold.
Grab hold.
I really appreciate you allowing me to do this. I've had this thing inside me saying I got to get this out. So I want your permission to be able to do this. So do I have your permission? Yes. Okay. This is it's a Mother Earth song. It's to protect the Mother Earth, and we all need to do that. And in the song you hear a word "hamka," which means building a relationship. And in that building of a relationship, it's actually when you are being allied with the earth, with spirit. Which means that we walk the earth, mani. We walk the earth, mani. Mani, walk the earth. In a spiritual way. Which means that we are giving energy to the earth, and in return the earth is giving her energy. And in our way, it's female. I've been told by my elders that because of what I have done for communities, because of my military service, I can wear a hat even in prayer if I wanted to. But because we're talking about these sacred entities, the woman, the earth, they're all sacred. And because of that, I'll remove my hat out of that respect and that honor towards that sacredness. If you allow me. Okashila wakan hakya, onshi makila yaeyo heyo, mitaku au, onshi maka hanka mawani eloyo heyo, daku wakan heya chaya, onshi michi yeyo heyo. Way ah, way ah, way ah, way ah, way ah, way oh, hey oh. Way ah, way ah, way ah, hey ah, way oh, hey oh. Way ah, yeah, way ah, way ah, yeah, way oh, hey oh. Takashela wakan hakya, onshi maki hera yeyo, hoi, mitaku eyo, onshi maka hanka mawani eloyo, heyo, daku waka heya picha, onshi michi yeyo, Mom. Oh.
Rob, can you come forward? Rob, people who are. John, will you bring it over?
I say, who speaks for Mother Earth? Who speaks for blood? Who speaks for water?
In Anishinaabe ways, the balance of all things between the dualities, we say that it is the women who speak for the water and all that comes from water, which includes, of course, our children, water in all of its forms, the water that comes to us in the maple trees, the water that flows through our berries. All of this is the realm of our women, and we have a sacred responsibility to care for all that comes from water because of the gift of the water that we carry within us under the guidance of Jesus, the ground of the moon, the nighttime sun, who has the ultimate responsibility for caring for the waters. But the world is made up of multiple beings, no? We are men and we are women, and that the men have responsibility for all that is fire. The men take care of all that is related to fire. That we need each other to stand with each other to care for the water and for the fire, all that is fire, all that is water, and that together we create the conditions for life.
I'm just sitting here to complete the circle. I'm not leading.
Barbara, if you wouldn't mind. I just wanted to talk to everyone for a second because I have to excuse myself to go work on that poem. But I wanted to say how much I appreciate all that you shared in the last few days and to say just a tiny bit about what I'm up to so that you understand what I'm going to do later tonight is going to be a draft. And the draft, for that draft, I've been collecting pieces of your language. So you may find phrases of yours in this poem, and once you hear it, you like it, you don't like it. If you don't want me to use your language in the final draft, I can take it out. But I wanted to do that as a way of just sort of honoring what has passed in the last few days. And if you don't find your language in there, please don't be offended. It's sometimes I have pages and honestly, so many pages of notes. And I'm just sifting through at this moment in time to see what I can put together or something that resembles a poem for tonight. But again, thinking that it's a draft of what will come. But I just wanted to say, sorry I can't sit with you during this time. I'm going to do that. But I'm so thankful for all the gifts that you've given me in knowledge and language and good spiritedness. Which
Good luck. Blessings. The talking circle is intended to be a place where we express our feelings, our thoughts about what we've experienced today, integrating with previous days, looking to the future as well. So it's a pretty open space here. We want to move ourselves as a community in a way that increases sustainable wisdom. So whatever leads us in that direction is welcome to the circle.
I'm going to say a few things, and what I'm going to say is just things that have been swirling around.
It's only a test.
Yeah, I don't know if they're swirling. They're something else now. So whenever I come to things like this, and I expressed this a little bit, I think, in our first couple of talking circles, is that I have a real hard time with this. We are all one, And I understand we're all human beings. I understand we're all related. But I also know that right now we're not in a relationship that's respectful of one another. Right now, everyone is not, we have a relationship of oppression going on. That's how I feel in terms of Indigenous populations in the United States and really Indigenous populations around the world with the settler colonizers who invaded and continue to occupy Indigenous lands. And so when we engage in conversations like this, I'm always extremely uncomfortable because I have a hard time with people assuming that we can just lay all that aside and work on the problem, the one problem that's in front of us, which is climate change or whatever it might be. In this case, a search for sustainable wisdom that will carry everyone forward into the future. And so we were talking a little bit about this at lunch, and I just want, I talked yesterday in my presentation about some of the harms that have been done to Dakota homeland. And, people want to protect the land, they want to protect the water, but, our people are indigenous to that land too. And we need protecting. We need care. And we need to be in our homelands. And right now, we have all kinds of people occupying our land, and most of our people live in exile. That's a relationship of oppression. And I can't move forward to this, we are all one in the same boat together, because we're not. I believe, as Indigenous people, that we have an inherent right to our homelands. That's our inheritance. And the blood and bones of our ancestors are embedded in the earth, in the soil, in the water. And so I'm very uncomfortable with the language that says there's no difference between Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people. One thing I know is that when we're in our homeland, when we're in sacred sites, they recognize blood. And it makes me very uncomfortable when people ignore that. It also makes me uncomfortable when there's an assumption that if you want to care for the earth, that you have to participate in Indigenous ceremonies from the local people. I don't believe that's necessary. I think you can be committed to place. You can love the land. You can protect the land. You can love the water and protect the water without appropriating other people's spirituality. And I think it is appropriation. So I wanted to start out by saying that. And I know that that's not hard, or it's hard to hear. It's always unpleasant to say, because I most of the time feel like when I enter a mixed group that I'm the one who plays the heavy, that I come in and make everyone uncomfortable. The other point that I want to make is that there's a lot of talk about changing consciousness with the masses or with these other populations. And what I guess my question to everyone here is, because presumably everybody here is on board, everybody here knows that changes need to be made, knows we need to live differently, knows we need to take those steps to a sustainable existence, or the planet is going to be killed by us. So what are you going to do? If you represent the consciousness that you want to spread around to everyone else, what is your consciousness telling you to do right now? Because things are under threat. Animals, plants, waters, lands, life everywhere is under threat. What are you going to do with your inheritance? enhanced consciousness.
Thank you. Yeah, that actually is pretty close to my son as well, except it's usually my job to make everyone uncomfortable, so glad somebody else is doing that. But Grandma Crandall tells me that unless they want to kill you before you leave, you haven't done your job. So I think that's probably accurate. You know, I've been all around the world, Australia, where there, and one of the most interesting places was St. Switzerland, where there's still a certain woman consciousness. There was woman Tom. There was actually a matriarchal culture underlying the Swiss that got very masculinized because of Christianity and Roman invasion and all of that. But you can still see the wells, central wells that belong to the women, and there are specific women associated historically with those wells. And I can tell you the water under there, it was living blood, and you could actually feel the water, at least I could feel the water in the way that it was clean, ancient, and still moving, and the fact that someone came and talked to it was very gratefully received the water, because people had not talked to it for a very long time. And I noticed when I came here, I would kneel down. There's a particular tree I go to here on the next tree, and the spirits in the ground would just jump up. They jump up when somebody starts talking to them, and it occurs to me that people in Notre Dame don't seem to be talking to the ground or thanking the trees. That would be a really nice thing if we could start for students, the people, to start noticing the landscape that they're running by on the way to class, and maybe stop and find a grandfather tree and thank things, and find a place where you can feel the water, and you can feel the water going under your feet, and the place where that is. And thank the blood and the breath, the unified cosmos. I would suggest that. And you don't need an indigenous ceremony to do that.
Thank you, both of you. Well, as a question for you, so we now know that our dominant system doesn't have a religious or political or economic earth-honoring system, and it's vacant. And so, as a member of one of these dominant societies, I'm looking around for ideas, and naturally I'm drawn to Aboriginal indigenous ways. So I stumble in, I offend some, others are wide open. Yeah, come learn our ways. It's confusing. Without asking you to do the work, but so how do we do this without creating more pain? And yet, authentically, we need to learn stuff, and we don't have models other than what we've been talking about here.
Yeah, it's a really important question, and in the Twin Cities metro area, I've done a lot of work with white solidarity activists, and this is always one of the first things that we need to address, because a lot of people, when they start to align themselves with Indigenous people, automatically expect entrance or hope for entrance into our ceremonial life, and that's part of the extraction that I talked about that I'm really opposed to. Part of it is that as Indigenous people who've been heavily Christianized, we're still recovering our ways, and I will stay away from ceremonies or events in our community if I know they've been opened up to non-Native people. So every time you as a non-Native person might go to a ceremony, know that there are Indigenous people who are now self-selecting to stay away because they don't want to do that. They don't want to participate in that kind of ceremony, or if it's mixed, or because there's something very uncomfortable as we're trying to recover our ways on our own terms to have people from the outside participating as well, as if they have equal right, equal access, and it's for everyone. Because I'll stop there for that. But you know, one of the things I really appreciated about John's presentation earlier today was that he talked about you know, our spiritual leaders, our healers, I think it was in reference to the grief workers, are already taxed within our communities. And we sure don't need our people out there helping all white people, you know, do these things. Like that's a nightmare scenario from my perspective. But I really, you know, I'm much more comfortable with the idea of taking, you know, because I do believe that everyone has to embrace Indigenous values and respect for life. But I think people need to create their own ways, or go back to your own traditions, whatever they might be, whatever those Indigenous traditions are, whether they're from Europe or wherever else, and work to recover those, or to create new things.
Yeah, well, grandfather, yesterday and I were talking, and you know, even if your tradition feels lost, there's a lot of, I'm sure the older European traditions may feel to you. The spirits have not forgotten what the tradition was. Ask them. Ask them. And part of my point with Singalan was, it's still there. And they're eager to talk to anybody that's willing to listen. So, for example, in the Jewish tradition, if you go far enough back, you've got the matriarchs, patriarch. Go back, talk to those spirits and see what they have to say. Go back to your own tradition, you know. Anybody in here a serial killer? Anybody in here a mass murderer? Well, offhand I'd say whatever tradition you came up in, you know, did some good. So just go back and mine it, right? Go back and mine your own tradition. And you're not appropriating from anyone, you're encouraging your own spirits of place.
Is it Jeff?
Yeah.
You know, we're really grappling with this because it's a capacity issue. It's a capacity issue for the Indigenous communities as well. There's so much grief and there's so much trauma healing that's needed. Like when you start to realize what we're actually doing, the elephant in the room is the full, sheer ecological reality. And I'm not talking about nature ecology, I'm talking about the ecology of grief. It is so big. And I was talking to Steve earlier about, you know, the grieving customs are not just for funerary moments, you know, like, okay, I lost my grandfather, I'm really sad, I need to grieve. He was talking about, you know, just participating in grieving ritual as a way to even build stronger connection to place. You know, that grief is not just for healing of trauma, it's also, it plays an important role in proactively developing connection. You know, Paul Raphael from the Odawas talks about tears as the water of life. And when they're flowing, it means that we're connecting. It's not a negative thing. How many of you were moved to tears, you know, multiple times during these last few days? And these were moments of high connection for us. But to really understand, let's just call it the technology of grieving, because it is. It's a social technology. We need people to really look into it and search into it. You know, there's a whole committee of people from all over the world doing that right now, and I know there's multiple groups of people doing the same thing, you know, from Joanna Macy, you know, to various other grief working, what you might call therapy, who are all cooperating with each other right now. We're holding an open conversation with Indigenous healers, with various forms of emerging healing skills. So, you know, that's what that Leadership Initiation Project is investigating, you know, and we're inviting people to come and explore this question and to find a good way, an appropriate way, and we teach them to respect exactly what Wasi's saying, you know, that we can't put the pressure on the Indigenous communities. We want to help the Indigenous communities not become a burden to them because they're suffering a capacity issue and trauma recovery also. So I encourage you to look in that Leadership Initiation Project, anyone else who has that question to do that. It's an open conversation. It's been going on for 5 years, and we're starting to see some measurable results in people, for instance, from the UK. coming and working with and learning various grief healing technology going back to the UK and then recovering what was traditional in the UK from that lens and then reactivating old Druidic methodologies. So I think that's a nice way. It's like borrowing expertise, working cooperatively with Indigenous healers, sharing ideas together, learning, methodology, understanding what's there, the commitment to go back home to your roots and find out what was in our lineage and activating it. Or going for a vision quest and finding a new way for the times we're in. What Barbara's saying, we are these beings who have always informed culture are still present. Craig Foster, the filmmaker who did all that great documentary work with the Bushmen, he was so worried when the 4 90-plus-year-old trance healers of the Kalahari that he was working with were in their 90s. He said, "Who are you training to replace you?" No one has come to learn these things for 25 years. And Craig panicked, and they laughed. And they were laughing with love. And he's like, "Why are you laughing? This isn't funny. You're about to lose something vital." They said, "Do you think we're really going anywhere? We're not going anywhere. We'll always be here. And you just have to come to us and find us because we'll always be here." And that's something that is hard for Westerners to reckon with, but build your connection to nature and it will start to talk to you again. Everything that David said, so eloquently, in a stunning way, that other consciousness, learning to communicate with that, which you can do right on your own back stoop, starting with bird language, because what starts out as mechanical quickly goes deeper and activates your nervous system to realize that you can talk to everything out there. And once that starts going, then you start to find access to that. And it's hard to feel safe doing that. I know that too, because people think it's weird or whatever. But the etymology of the word weird is connected. That word means connected. So do your I don't even want to call it work because it's not work. How can you call connection work? Beautiful practice, and just like all these beautiful little sustainable food products that are emerging in our economy right now, and all these cool little ways in which people are localizing food, I think we need to embrace connection as one of the things that enhance quality of life. All of us, it's something that we all have to figure out. It won't bring any of the goodness. No, I'm done. Thank you.
I'm Bob, and I've learned I'm a man in a woman's world here, and thank you for that. And as I listen to the opening comments, I think we've all been challenged. And my response to that is, what will I do? If I do nothing, I'll feel really bad that I was challenged and did nothing. So in my work, I use a tool to help people when they have much to do to figure out what to focus on, what to do next week, next month, what to do this year. We've heard suggestions that we should, short term, could also think about 7 generations, related to 7 generations from now, descendants. So I've got some papers that have a list of some of the things I heard over the last few days, and some of them I heard wrong. And I'm just going to pass them out now, and towards the end of the meeting, we'll have a chance that if you're numbered, I'll give you some Post-its if you want to pick 1 or 2 or 3 that you think we might focus on. I want to clarify some of them and say, Bob, you didn't get it right. And I'll learn a lot. Help me this morning. So to continue with the conversation, I'll just pass out the papers if it's helpful. In terms of where we go individually or as a group from there, that would be wonderful. Verify some of the ideas, it would be wonderful. The royal pain in the ass and it aggravates you, just we start to talk to.
So let me
Yes,
go ahead.
please, I think this gentleman was saying.
Let me go ahead and just chime in. Usually I just listen in these conversations first. Always listen before you speak. It's a motto I was taught by my elders. Listen before you speak. So I'm an educator. I'm an Indigenous. That's what I've dedicated my life to. And I'm thinking that the question that what do we do? We don't have these traditions anymore. And I get that question often, but I think if you really shift that kind of logic to see that there are actually many traditions in the Western world of educating in different kinds of ways that come to these same points. And I think part of the issue here is that one kind of way of viewing education has been adapted or adopted, to be the one and only way to view this process of education. And so part of the project is to recapture all of these other forms of education that have been here and been talked about, that there's a tradition to, and to really bring them forward. And also to take a look at the principles, not so much what Indigenous people do, but what are the underlying principles that Indigenous people do. And we've talked about this throughout this conference. There's principle. But the act is how to, make that your own and how to create around those principles in ways that make sense in your context. So it's so that's a form of education that needs to come forward again. And it is in the Western tradition, Montessori, it's Waldorf, the Steiner system. There's a variety of ways and approaches that have been part of the Western tradition. Noetic science, all of these kinds of things. Alchemy, So it is a problem and an issue and a cause. Of education, So it's the way that you understand and look at education. I think that needs to change, and that's been kind of my mantra, all along, and continue to be. But education that we've received in university, in school, has been the problem all along in so many big ways, and it can also be the solution. It has two sides to it, but it's the way that you understand and you use that. And so I think, especially for universities and for places of higher education, this has to be questioned in no uncertain terms. The system that's used in universities today is a corporate system. It's a system that negates all other ways of knowing, including all other Western ways of knowing, other possibilities, in deference to one that has been legitimized and vested through corporatization right now at this point. That has to be questioned. So those are the issues, I think, faced head on in no uncertain terms. Now, for Indigenous people all over the world, we're trying to, as Wazi said, we're trying to recreate things that were lost in colonization. And in some cases, we have little seeds that we can nurture and grow from. In other cases, we've lost complete, traditions that we have to think about how can we reinvent, if that is even possible, these traditions in ways that aid us today, that help us to be resilient and to sustain ourselves, our cultures, our traditions into the future. So that's the education project of Indigenous. Robin's model, I think, is just fantastic, because it's taken an Indigenous biological metaphor and melded them together and she's come up with an amazing model. So you see this going on among indigenous people in Asia, in Africa, in New Zealand. This has been our movement for the last 30 or 40 years. But again, it's about to heal the wounds of colonization, and so we have a very specific project, that all of us are aware of in the work that we're doing, that we're focusing on. And I think that same kind of thinking has to be the thinking of change and transformation in the context of education in a Western sense. And so I do work with a lot of non-native students as well as native students, and you can see that they're starved for this kind of interactive, connected kind of education. You can only do so much in the course, in terms of facilitating that, giving water to that thirst, but the whole system doesn't support it. It's totally marginalized. Creative forms of education, or even the arts are there, but even the arts suffer from a kind of regimentation, towards just the Western view of what is art, And so all of those things have to be questioned and transformed, along with the project of what are we going to do about sustaining ourselves into the next generations.
Oz and Barbara have launched us into a good place, I think, a challenging place, but a good place. This book that Steve was just about to take, that was sitting next to me, was a teachable moment. Spirits of blood, spirits of breath. Twinning. But twinning really isn't about two, it's about four. The blood is water, like the sea. But the blood carries hemoglobin, which is air, which is oxygen. The sea has mammals that die, which is blood. So you've got the air and the water together. This makes four when they come together, not just two. And so, I think, I don't know what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. I was fire, air, water, air, fire, air, man, whatever terms you want to give to it. Went through the Marine Corps, Vietnam, chip on my shoulder. And I had a near-death experience in the water for a week. I had a vision of falling into a lake and having a fish. And I didn't wind up with my own blooded tradition, complicated reasons, mentioned a little bit in my presentation. I wound up with a different tradition, different people, and largely adopted that, the Lakota. I understand the grieving. I understand the importance of what you so eloquently said. And I know Rick Two Dogs does not allow non-Indian people into his sun dances because the spirits told him there's too much of a risk of the non-Indian corrupting Sundance. But he does allow non-Indian people to other ceremonies. It's a complicated issue, but I believe that we are all of this earth. And we do borrow. I don't know of a tradition in any indigenous culture that I've studied, and I've studied many, that has not borrowed. One of our favorite songs in the Lodge, we borrow from the Cheyenne. We borrow from somewhere else. And so, I think there's a both and here. We have to be recognizing that. We talked about spirituality as being of a particular place, and that particular indigenous culture that has been there for thousands of years, that is the place for that. That's not what we should be taking. That should be help people get that back who have had access to it, because we can't learn it without the language anyway, really. Even if you're part, you have 1/32% of blood in you, you still have to borrow that from those plants and animals that are in that place, which gets back to what Greg just said and what Robin was saying. And if a leg up to learning from the plant is we have to have some philosophy that is not of the West that can teach us to listen to the plant. And we have no Indian blood. And we can borrow with respect from some local culture to help us do that. And I would like to ask my brother a question, if I may. I would like to know why you are allowing and teaching and inviting non-Indian people to your ceremony.
Thank you. I wish I could hear better. My ears are not, they don't pick up certain, so sometimes I miss what is being said. But I was sent here with a message, and I didn't get that message out yesterday because my preparation time took too long, and I'm sorry for that. The Star people sent me here. 3 people sent me here with a specific message to bring to the people. I am what they call Apitaugusan language. If you translate it, it translates to have son. The Nihiawak, or the Cree people, gave us that name. I lived as a Cree all my life. My mother lived as a Cree. My father, grandmother, grandfather, all were bush people who lived in the bush. That picture I had yesterday was my grandmother. And that was my grandfather, who also lived as a Cree people, but he was a Catholic, Métis Catholic, they call him Métis. But he lived in Trapped, worked for the Hudson Bay Company. That place that their picture was taken from was the place they lived. It was an abandoned Hudson Bay Company fort. That's where they lived. Grandmother raised all her children there. All the children were born in the bush, except for a few. I think there was 2 of them that were born in hospital because they were in close proximity to a hospital. She was a midwife. And I am Apitaugusan, which means that I have French in me. I have Cree in me. I want to tell you a story. I come from northern Saskatchewan. Before I get to this message, I live in British Columbia, which is totally different from my culture. They have longhouse culture over there. They're sedentary kind of people. And there's 52 different languages in British Columbia. Where I live, there's a Stalo people. I live in Vancouver. And I work for an organization, a native organization. I used to go out and do medicinal presentations. Most people used to say, oh, wait. That's not our way. But they didn't have anything else to present these people, because they were city people too. This loss that you talk about affected many people. The loss of culture. The culture that the Creator had put here, still here. We are the ones that are lost because of what happened to us in history. Not our fault. But we are coming back to it. This language that I'm speaking is borrowed. Some of the people here that I heard That borrowed language are so articulate, so much knowledge. I sat there yesterday thinking, what am I doing here? I don't have that. I don't have that kind of language. I don't have that knowledge. What can I offer these people? Forgetting that I was sent here with a message. I went to a residential school, healing center, to deal with trauma. There were 4 elders. We were all 10 years apart. I was the youngest one at 51 years old. All others were 10 years older than me. And the oldest one there told me about a ceremony that they have in their territory, which is going in the water, immersing yourself in the water. And he showed me how to do it. He said, we do it for 30 days, 30 mornings before the sun comes up. And I thought, well, that's not my way. I'm going to try it anyway. I went in that water. Some mornings I had to break the ice to go into that water. You face east and you immerse yourself. And you turn around underneath, and as you come up, you don't make a ripple. You come up real slow and you go. You blow all that negativity up. You put that in 4 directions for 30 days. And I did that. On the 30th day, the last day that I was doing it, as I came up, last breath, birds started singing. What a beautiful song. I've never heard a bird like that in my life. Never heard one since. I just stood in that water. I didn't feel that water at all. I didn't feel the cold. The birds sang and sang and sang. I was waiting for him to stop. He wouldn't stop. I said, I have to go in now. I have to finish this. I have things to do inside. Started to walk out of the water. Kept on singing, kept on singing. As soon as I took my foot out of the water and put it on land, my question is that the French side of me, or is that the Aboriginal side of me? It happened. That was not my way. How come that happened? The spirits, do they mind that we're different here? It's earth walk. Do they open their hearts and say, we will help your grandchild? That message that I was supposed to bring from the trees and from the star peoples, we have to go back and listen to them. Our sister who has her own place hears them all the time. I have no doubt about that. She's in a beautiful, beautiful place, more connected than I am, living in a city. I have been told that I must do that too. I have to go and live in a city. I was born in a bush. I came to the city to learn. Now that I have this learning, I have to go back and learn about who am I. That name, White Standing Buffalo, what does that mean? Scientific terms, it's my vibrational frequency. That's who I am, connected to the whole universe. But it's English. How can I be connected to the universe in English? If I'm a Nihil, I'm a Cree. Yet they understand that. Some of the spirits that come in our ceremonies speak English. Some of them speak French. Others speak Cree. Those 3 languages I have heard. Ceremonies that I go to. And we don't call them ceremonies. We have different names for it in our language. we say, "Iwi tak mak," means I sit with this person. Our communion with all of creation. Journey to that particular time. There are no accidents, no coincidences. There's only things that unfold as they should. Chuck White coming from the bush in northern Saskatchewan from a comic, ending up here in Notre Dame. 60 years ago, I heard about Notre Dame, up here, because of a rattle. The river with 4 arrows in it and a star. That's how it came to me 8 years ago. Am I stuck in my head? I have a feeling. My heart is sore. It hurts. Yeah, it hurts. It really hurts. Those people that I see are suffering, that don't have anything to eat. And yet, I have lots at home. I went to work downtown Vancouver. I was there, Skid Row, for a number of years. I know what that's like. I felt so disconnected from everything. I heard about university, people going to university, and I thought, well, that's a world in the next level of existence for me. I'll never ever go there. How can I? I don't know anybody there. Surely native people don't go there. All the native people are in Skid Row. That was my worldview at the time. Every city I went to, where I went to, Skid Row. I couldn't go to the suburbs. I didn't know anybody there. The only people I knew were in Skid Row. That's where I went to. Today, what a great honor to be here among all of you. I have been denied so much in my life. I felt pushed aside. I felt I was less than. I don't want to put that feeling on anybody else. Never. How can I heal? The only way to heal for me is to forgive what has happened to me. And you know what? It opened the door. Now I can feel, now I can cry. Before I couldn't. It was hard, it was tough. Inside I was crying, but I wouldn't show it. Now I can show it. Because that connection that I have. My friend sang that song yesterday. Spirit came in. So strong, felt nauseated. Because I'm so impure. Who am I to allow that spirit to come to me, to come through me? I can't stand it. It's so pure. I am just a child starting out this journey of what we call life. I don't know anything. I've experienced great beauty, people, great beauty in animals, great beauty in what we call water. I've also heard we're 75% water. So this battle that we're doing is for ourselves. I sat with a young person today, told her I was glad that she was here. Because the battle is for them. For the young ones coming behind us. My daughter was an activist in Vancouver. province of British Columbia. Dad, forget the young people, don't forget us. He said, you are the reason, we are the reason that you are there. Her name is Strong Earth Woman. She puts me in my place. Tells me what to do. How to do it. Because all she has to do is look at me and I see my grandmother. With my grandmother's eyes were same thing. Very, very careful of what I say. I like to hug her because I don't have to look at her. Scares me when I look at her. I have opened my ceremonies to that French side of me. That French represents the European people. That part of me. My Nihio side of me too says I'm a four directions person. Nihio, that's what it means, four directions, or four body people. Mental, physical, emotional, spiritual. How can we learn to get along if we don't interact? Yes, the oppression is there. There's people that are oppressing. Continue to oppress. I see that and I feel that. I go to the store, Safeway store, I pay with cash. There's no Aboriginal person in front of me. Finished shopping. But they're chatting. They look at me and they keep on chatting. Did they see me or did they not see me? That's a question that I have. But I don't say anything, I just wait. Finally, good morning. That's it. No more than that. How can I help you? I stopped her. Give me the change. Sometimes she misses my hand. Now my question is, was that intentional? Or was it not? Do I need to think this way? Or is it because of who I am? Or where I am? Or is it because of that person? What is it? Or do I need to carry it? Do I need to give it to the Creator, the grandmothers and grandfathers, so they can assist me, show that I am made of? Resiliency of that willow tree. One of the trees that sent me here. Willow, red willow. Red willow ends to your headaches. It has something called acetylcysteine in there that's made in aspirin. That's from the red willow. Those are the kind of things that these tree people are telling me to pass on to people. You don't have to take an aspirin. You go to the south side of a willow thicket and you sit there facing south. You communicate with that willow, it will take your headache away. I don't mean just a throbbing headache. Those thoughts that you have in your mind that cause that headache to happen. I want to thank you all for listening to me. I said before that I don't know anything. All I am is a messenger. These questions are very, very heavy. There's answers to all of that. They may be beyond us as human beings. There's others that know. That's who we have to connect. Let's hear what they have to say. Let's listen to them. Because maybe it's our minds that have created what's happening here. Destroying the water. All of that. Maybe it's our minds that did that. What about the feeling part of us? The spiritual part of us? All of that. The bird that my brother talked to. The bird that talked to him. It's there for all of us. We carry those ceremonies. They were given to us to carry. They didn't say, those are yours. We believe from my culture that we don't own anything in this world. And I had read about some of the chiefs a long time ago that said, one cannot sell the ground upon which one walks. That was from here in the United States. Listen to those wise ones. Listen with your heart. I thank beautiful women, their grandmothers. Voice takes a lot of courage. Voice, oh, gee. Tanchi suapa tamen no magiwe. Tanchi se suapa tinigia. That's what they say when you sit in the circle. Seeing for us is more than the two eyes. It's a total being. Tanchi suapa tamen. Hope once again that I have not offended anybody. Very, very grateful that I have come to this territory as a visitor to be able to be given the opportunity to share. In elections, two people are running together against each other. The winner will sometimes take that person and hire them part of their team. Where do you want your enemy? You want him over there, you want him next to you. Knowing where things are. Knowing more than just from your mind. That knowing, that being, feeling that tree, feeling that water, feeling the air, the breath that my brother talks about. How we talk, how did we talk a long time ago? We used to visit each other. Canada, to Mexico. Just like that in an instant. They didn't need jets, they didn't need anything. There was an elder that was being interviewed in a tundra. Anyway, elder, that reporter asked him, what do you think of the government? He said, making those rocket ships and sending them to the moon. That elder just laughed. He said, oh, he said, you know, we've done that for thousands of years, he said, and it didn't cost us 1 cent. He said, we just sit here on a rock and we can go there and back, just like that. One more tree that I'd like to tell you about. Waganagan, they call it in my language, means to bend. And what do you want to bend it? Well, you can make shapes out of it, right? But in a more profound sense, it's used to bend time so you can travel. That's what it's about. Those, what people call ceremonies, we incorporate those ones. Those are the ones that know. We don't do it. We're just a passenger in that. I feel good now. I have given part of the message yesterday. Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you.
Question. So first, I worry about the effect of borrowing traditions and knowledge from people who still live under active occupation and oppression, because this borrowing has an unequal power dynamic, which has a long history of violent occupation. And so with this concern, I wonder, how can there be a healthy grieving process when there is still active occupation of people all over the world, whether it's in North America, South America, Tibet, Palestine, etc. So in other words, can there be a balance between fighting and breaking down systems of oppression and occupation, and a productive grieving process does not push aside to the margins necessary fights against such oppression and
you had the tradition of walking away. Nobody said you had to fight. And in fact, if two people couldn't get along, or two parts of the village couldn't get along, one of them just walked away. Crazy Horse and Red Cloud couldn't get along. Crazy Horse and his people walked away. Now the soldiers came down and killed him, but he wasn't fighting. He was doing the traditional thing. He would walk away. During our fight with the Mound Builder priests, the original Mohawk grandmother, see what happened during the Iroquois Civil War is the old priesthood, which was hierarchical and male, had corn in the conflicts. The sisters wouldn't let the people grow it. And the women said, but our children are hungry. And they said, no, hunting only, which is a man thing. And so the Mohawk mother just stood up and she walked away. Now, if you are important enough, and loved enough, you stand up and walk somewhere. Other people will stand up and walk behind you and stood up and walked behind her. She walked up and up, went across the St. Lawrence, tried growing corn later. The growing season was short, so she came down into New York, and the growing season was just right, so the Mohawks stayed there. And the story is very, very old, a couple thousand years old. But she walked away. You do not have to cooperate, and Gandhi said that. We did that much more recently. Just don't cooperate.
Today, with a lot of the issues that come up, we can that it, in some ways, non-cooperation can be employed. But I also think that we do need to engage because there's no place to walk anymore. The whole planet's affected.
Well, I meant that metaphor. Just don't cooperate. When I started at the university, man, they wanted me dead. It was like I was supposed to be shot at dawn every morning I went in. And I wasn't supposed to do things the way I was doing them, and I wasn't supposed to be the person I was, and I had nothing but roadblock, roadblock, roadblock. It was actually very personally painful. But what I did is I just went ahead and I did what I knew I was supposed to do. And eventually all the people in the way fell away, fell away, fell away by the weight of their own misdeeds. They fell away, they fell away. And a couple are still falling away. So you may have to, sometimes the only way around is straight through. And all it takes is a little bit of gumption. Just keep doing what you know is the thing you're supposed to do. And the people hurting you, what can they do? All they can do is kill you. And that's what the old ones used to say. All they can do is kill you. And they can only do it once. So just keep going. And that was what I always do when I have a fight like that. I stop and I spend some time and I look at the water and it's fine. And I say, is this one worth dying for? And if the answer is yes, because, you know, what are they going to do? Kill me?
It's like you have to give us your life.
There is a film and a website called A Force More Powerful, which is about civil disobedience. And they have a film with Gandhi in there, the civil rights movement, clips I use in class. And they have at the website 198 ways to be civilly disobedient. It's very useful.
Too, for me, the issue, and we were talking about this last night a little bit about the issue of grief, and it's hard to carry a sense of loss that's heavy, so heavy all the time, and at the same time, the only thing that truly gives me a sense of relief from that is when I'm actively working towards justice, and I really believe have peace without justice, that none of us should be calm and at peace while the world is burning.
We have a student group here. We came to greet us and ask for advice. And I'd like to invite them to step to the microphone.
Or kids.
Hi, my name is Gemma. This is
Yeah, I'm Cameron.
I'm Tessa. We are members of Fossil Free ND, which is Notre Dame's fossil fuel divestment campaign. I've attended a few of these events over the past few days, and I know you've talked a lot about the ways that the fossil fuel industry affects Native Americans in various ways, but right now in the media we're hearing a lot about the Dakota Access Pipeline. And we'd like to invite you to participate in our educational campaign for Notre Dame students about the pipeline. We've started this banner with the words Fossil Free ND and Sustainable Wisdom stand with Standing Rock. On the bottom here it says, the Dakota Access Pipeline is a proposed oil transport system that threatens the clean water and sacred lands of the Standing Rock Sioux. As people who call the earth our home, we can't stand for this. Here's why. At this point, we'd like to invite you to each take a card that we'll pass out, and if you have a reason why we can't stand for it, if you have a reason why we can't stand for destruction of Native American lands or destruction of water, destruction of the earth, we'd like you to write that down, to share that with our campus community, and we're going to hang this banner on our campus so that people can see it and people can understand what's wrong with these types of injustices. If you'd like to participate, we'll be handing out those cards now. Thank you.
I'd like to respond to some of that and maybe give you my card. We've been doing all of the financial research behind the investors in the Energy Transfer Partners, and it's also important to know that it's actually a very bad company. It currently has 4 lawsuits against it from New Jersey, Louisiana, Pennsylvania, and I think Virginia. And the reason they're suing this company is it's been dumping hazardous materials and contaminating groundwater. And there's 7 other states that have cited this exact company. So we're working with investors and we're asking for a bank boycott. We've got a list of all the banks that are financing this thing. So if you guys want that kind of information, we'll be glad to share it with you. Yeah. And we can actually give you the emails of the analysts that are rating the investments. But we desperately need a huge boycott. We're starting to look at hopefully we're going to work with NCAI to get a bank boycott going. Well, there's a number of them, like Wells Fargo, Citibank. The thing about this particular project is Energy Transfer Partners isn't a regular LLP. It's what's called an MLP. So what it is it's a company that's structured for preferential tax treatment more than actually a company that creates jobs. It's just a company to create money for rich people that invest in it. It doesn't even actually exist as like you and I would think of a company existing. So it really is just I disclaim this is not investment advice. I'm not an investor. I'm not giving any recommendations on investments. This is a really bad company that we're hoping that we can call for divestment. Because we can't do shareholder resolution in this one because most of the investors are institutional investors, whereas normally you could go in and get a firm that's invested in it and you can work around dialogue or shareholder resolutions with the company. They don't operate this way, so we might have to move to divestment, but right now we're looking at the banks because mostly they're all institutional or index investors in this company.
Children, thank you for what you're doing. Let me say that all the land of Turtle Island is indigenous land, whether or not we're allowed to live on our own land. And you know, the waters of Lake Erie are being hideously fouled, where I live, hideously fouled. And those of us that speak for it don't actually have any kind of backing. Very few Indians in Ohio who are indigenous to Ohio have any kind of federal recognition. And those of us who did saw it yanked under the delightful government program called termination in the 1950s. And that means that we have, under the current system, no credibility if we talk to a government or if we talk to a corporation or an organization, that does not mean that the lake is not being hideously fouled every single day by the agribusinesses in southern Ohio, which is the deeply red part of the state, by the way. And completely unregulated, they just dump all their waste right in the rivers, and the rivers go into the groundwater, they go into the lake, and then we wind up every now and then with a situation you may have heard of in 2014, where about 1 million people in Northwest Ohio could not drink the water because it was so hideously fouled with poisonous algae. The rest of the year, let's not pretend that it's actually clean. Those of us that are very sensitive, those things get quite ill, and that's most Native people and a lot of other people, elderly people or people with weak immune systems or children, little children. So these battles need fighting for too. So it's not just the battles you see in the news every day. It's not just that. Agribusiness is one of the very worst killers of the lakes. And all the Great Lakes, one fifth of the world's freshwater supply is being destroyed right now by the agribusiness industry with a happy little assist from Monsanto. So, beautiful, and you do beautiful things. Now, think wider, okay?
I'm from
Microphone.
From Omaha, and in our area we had a long battle against the pipeline, which has been now stalled. It's not dead. Go back if they can get the right person at the top. But it's much the same issues as the Dakota access. Oil transport route. Basically, the bottom line is that oil is yesterday's fuel. We can't continue to mine and produce oil as we have. Most of the oil, especially the stuff that they get up in Alberta, tar sands, hideously pollutive. They're turning parts of Alberta into a landscape. We cannot continue to take oil out of the earth and put it carbon into the atmosphere. That's the basic bottom. Don't struggle with the whole bunch of others, and we've heard all kinds of common themes here over the last few days about a new paradigm for a sustainable earth. The central part of this is we're going to have to leave most of what the fossil fuel companies call assets in the ground, or will burn up. I think about 80% of what they have on their books cannot be burned, or there'll be so much carbon dioxide that the earth by and by, a few decades, a few centuries in the ocean, will become uninhabitable. Now, Craig spoke today about making an effort. All of us face this, even if we didn't ask for it. And at the same time, we face healing, face addressing historical wrongs, we face grievances. All of this has to happen at the same time, and we have to celebrate all the different cultures and all the strengths that we all have, and all the conflicts that sometimes implies. Deal with those. At the same time, we have to work toward a sustainable Earth. I mean, it's not optional. We reached the point, I talked about this, where the clock is ticking much faster than most people think. So this is going to be Dakota pipeline is a Native American environmental ethos in real time. One example. More often, my students very appreciative, very attentive to environmental issues. We talk, and I say, this will affect your Earth when you're my age and after that. So, you have a challenge.
We only have about 15 minutes left. We need to start to get on the bus at 5 o'clock. We're scheduled at 5 and 5:30. So what I'd like to do is talk a little bit more about concrete steps we can take as a group. I'll move my microphone so I'll cover here. And one thing you can do is fill out this sheet, and we can gather them and then see what we come up with overnight. You may also think about what you would like to propose, perhaps tomorrow at the beginning of our closing ceremony. We propose things. One thing I thought of is to have our group sign a letter that goes to the major media outlets to ask them to talk about thermal inertia, yes. Thermal inertia. Please discuss, write about this, inform the public. Maybe you'd like to write a paragraph about describing what that is that we put in the letter.
Darshana?
Yes.
Just one, there was some confusion about the papers, so just very briefly,
Yes.
10 seconds. So if you just write on the green Post-it the numbers of the ones you think we should work on or you want to work on, and if there's other ones, which there must be, that are not on the list, you could write that down. So you can save the white sheet and you just pass in the Post-its when you're done. Thank you, Darshana.
The way I think about action is both local and broad political. I think we have to work at both levels. So for students here to be working on Notre Dame, that's a good thing, because they're here and they'll have more influence than the faculty or the graduate students. The undergrads have the power here. So I think that's good. I think we also need to work at that higher level and try to press as much as possible people who control the media, control the discourse. So think of ways that you think we as a group, we can sign on to petitions, letters, we could start a petition to ask the government to look into various things. So I'm open, let's be open to ideas of more concrete things that we can do beyond our meeting.
Can I make interject my thought with your permission? I want want to say to everyone how thankful I am for the inspiration that you have given me. As we go through life, when we seek these things, especially the invisible ones, and we immerse ourselves with Mother Earth, and we listen, get re-inspired. But, I was very inspired attending this conference, and today I had a wonderful opportunity to sit with a couple of students while eating lunch, and they get it. I was so pleased to hear their conversation. They get it, they understand it. I want them to know that we're here to support you. We're here to help usher you. I also want you to know that, you know, at one time there was the greatest generation. That was our World War II veterans. That you now are the new generation. You're going to be the greatest generation because you're going to make these changes that need to be made. And I heard in your voices the intelligence and the way to do it and the changes that need to be made to do that. And I thank you so much for that and attending. Also, I go to these, not just conferences, but at the university that I'm at, we always have these meetings, and then we just talk, and that's it. And that was mentioned here. Also, the term commitment was mentioned here. Therefore, I'm going to commit myself to reevaluate who I am and what I do. I'm going to make 4 major changes. I don't know what they are yet. I don't want to be a New Year's resolutionist and make a resolution that I can't uphold. But I am going to go back and I'm going to change 4 things so I can continue on in this path. And I would hope that others would want to make commitments like that. And maybe there is a group that wants to organize to make sure this continues to go on. And the other commitment I'll make to this conference is for the next year, I will sing the song I sang today every day for the next year. Thank you for your attention.
I wanted to use something that Rebecca put up on the screen, showing the 80% of our Earth being on not a coincidence that it's indigenous land, because on this paper that we've been asked to fill out, number 19 says support indigenous cultures who are surviving. And so I just know when people look at all these other very important things, preservation of Mother Earth and restoring health and seeing nature as teachers, all the things we've talked about in the world, that he used John Young to modify an old statement, not instead of killing 2 birds, I'm going to talk about listening to 2 birds at the same time. If that was our first priority, number 19, to support indigenous cultures who are certainly struggling to survive, we could listen to 2 birds at the same time.
I'd like to first of all thank everyone who's here. It's just a wonderful thing, and I want to apologize that I cannot be with you tomorrow. I'm actually going up to Lake Erie to deliver lectures on climate change at Gannon University. But I'm struck by a bit of a paradox here as I'm thinking. It's been a number of years since I've been in the company of Indigenous wisdom holders, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be among you today. One thing one of my mentors once told me was that things you hear today, you may not realize what they mean or their significance until 30 years later. I understand that it takes time for wisdom to seep in and to understand what's going on. On the other hand, there is an incredible sense of urgency here. I don't know how to reconcile this. But I want to say that there's recent research that shows that for every 10 years, that we delay implementing carbon reduction measures, the peak temperature of the Earth will be 0.5 degree centigrade higher than it would have been if we started immediately. In other words, if the world waits 10 years to implement all the promises made at COP21, the peak temperature won't be 2 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial, it'll be 2.5. If we wait 20 years, it'll be 3, and then we're really all toast. I want to throw that in for whatever you decide to do tomorrow. I'll send Darsha actually the reference to these papers so that you can document the urgency. Put in terms of indigenous wisdom, but backed up with the complementarity of Western science. Thank you.
And there was a suggestion that we write a support. What do you want to say?
One thing that later this month, the Vatican is actually looking for input.
Excuse me, I can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear it.
Just talking to the mic.
Is this one working? Okay. One of the things we could do out of this is also provide some input to the Vatican on how Laudato Si should be implemented. And, you know, I think probably one of the ready things that this group could agree on is that the doctrine of discovery or the doctrine of domination should be actively repudiated. But there's also so much more, you know, we could do or ask for. You know, some things that have been mentioned are also there's church, but our church lands or some of the orders are acknowledging that these lands don't really own, you know, don't really belong to them. But how should this be handled going forward? Sometimes they're being sold now to help support retirements and stuff like that. So, you know, there's just a ton of things we could do that our education systems and how problematic they are been raised. You know, Wazee, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, you know, is it good maybe still for kids in local school systems who are not Indian to learn Indian languages? You know, my 15-year-old is looking at, well, what language, you know, should he learn? But why learn a language of empire, you know? Isn't it better to try to learn a language that is local to your area that might start teaching you a different worldview? So not asking to join the ceremonies, but at least to try to, you know, learn these different worldviews in an early age. I'm thinking much earlier ages too, you know, preschool on. And there are good intersections that we can find with our religious traditions. And initially, Jesus was very much an anti-empire, anti-power system, you know, person. So we can find various resonances, and I guess even Thomas Aquinas had said, and maybe it was Augustine as well, but the earth creation are the first book we should all be listening to and learning from. So I'm rambling here, and I apologize for that. This has been just such a deeply valuable meeting. I have heard from a few people that it would be very valuable to have an ongoing, even annual meeting. So I want to echo that and offer to help, you know, with any of these things in respect.
Maybe if there's someone who, or several who want to work on such a letter to the Vatican to connect with you, right? And then do we have any volunteers to host a
year or in 2 years, speak up.
What does that
Think about
mean,
it.
host?
Host, like we're hosting here at Notre Dame, we'll be hosting somewhere.
I can ask around at Earlham College. I don't know what it would take to make that happen, but I think there'd be a lot of interest. So I can ask some questions at least.
I'd like to just toss into the mix another practical, simple thing that's not at all listed in here, but, and that's simply rejuvenating oral culture, replenishing oral culture, supporting, sustaining, and protecting those oral traditions that still exist, and honoring them, and maybe lending an ear to them as much as we can, but also just beginning to replenish the culture of face-to-face storytelling yourself, face-to-place, face-to-face, face-to-place, yes. Stories, things that happen out on the land. Not writing all our wonderful experiences down, leaving some for the land to hold where the story happened, and telling them out on the land, and gathering people for the telling in the right season. The pleasure of learning to tell stories with one's whole body again, with others in the same space, sharing the same breath, and the pleasure of listening as well. It's fun, it's easy, and any children can help us with this delicious task. Oral culture is local culture. Rejuvenate oral culture fast.
I have something. One thing that kind of hit me hard here that I really hadn't thought about that much was the relating to nature. I mean, I believe in that. I've written about it, but the idea of animism and connecting with nature as a regular, routine part of life is clearly so important, more important than I already knew. And it makes me think of Dennis Kucinich. He wanted a Department of Peace for the United States. And I think that we're taught about nature from a scientific point of view and a resource point of view, but I think that what we need to develop is a way of having relationships with nature. That should be a part of school, and it should be a part of government policy. And that's something that I think is doable in a local level, going to schools, going to scouting organizations and what have you, and it could be something that could be done from the bottom up and the top down to help people to start having those kinds of relationships with nature. And I think once that starts, once that experience begins, it changes the way the brain works. I think that there's energy and vibrations involved in that changes the way people are connected, and that could be a very powerful force. I had already written that one down.
Last comment?
I was reminded I had said that I had the governor's phone number, so I do, and I thought I would give it out, and this is in the North Dakota situation. Well, let me just give the number first. His name is Dalrymple, D-A-L-R-Y-M-P-L-E. D-A-L-R-Y-M-P-L-E. He's the governor. His office phone number is 701-328-2200. 701-328-2200. If you want to jam his fax machine, it's 701-328-2205. 701-328-2205. For talking points, one of the, I think there's two key points in this. One is that it's absolutely imperative, and there are international standards and national standards on this, on Indigenous people's right to free, prior, informed consent. Period. No questions, no arguments, no consultations. It's our right. It's an international standard to have free, prior, informed consent, and it's globally, all of the legal cases are now derivative of the free, prior, informed consent. Even though what they're going to say is, a lawyer's going to tell you that the United Nations Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples is a declaration and not a legal document, this declaration is serving as the basis for derivative law cases. So they are being interpreted and used in the court. Plus, this country lives and operates on a government-to-government relationship with Indian tribes. And while perhaps the Army Corps and perhaps the federal judge all thought that that was consultation, 2 phone calls is not consultation. So it's just being informed they're coming. So what I think the key point would be that this violates both national and international law. And you can say self-determination, and you can say free, prior, informed consent, and that this places him on the wrong side of history. The other part of this was, even if they had consulted, at the very least, due diligence should identify healthy, robust companies with integrity. And they have not done that. The companies nowadays are required, and in fact, the market itself, I'll try to word this better, but let me get the background. The market itself is moving towards this ESG investing, like I said. Larry Fink is the CEO of the world's largest investment fund. It's like $4.5 trillion. And he just wrote a letter 2 months ago to all of the Fortune 500 companies telling them that they are now going to use ESG analytics in their investment decisions. So any analyst that's looking at this company and going to look at the environmental, the social, and the governance implications of this would have to reject this company. It has bad performance across the board. This is not investment advice, totally disclaiming that. But this is a company that is behind history and behind, well, he's on the wrong side of history. Let's say this is a company that's behind the market. It's a poor performing company because anyone in the market now doing successful high performance returns would look at the environmental, social, and governance aspects of this corporation's behavior, and it fails miserably on environment. It fails on 2 huge things: workplace safety and environment. Now, who wants a company that fails on workplace safety and environment to build a pipeline across 18 million people's water supplies? The least they could do is get a decent, competent company. So I think those are kind of the 2 points that you can word in any way you want.
What's Dalrymple's first name?
I don't know. Sorry. I'm not on first name basis with him, but maybe next time.
All right. As a professor, I'm going to give you a couple pieces of homework. One piece of homework is to prepare some kind of form of commitment that you will bring to the ceremony tomorrow, the closing ceremony. You don't have to tell us what it is. Just think about something that you will do differently as a result of this conference. And then the second is to come up with any further ideas of action and let us know in the morning. Turn in your